Over 700 milligrams of sodium and 15 grams of hidden sugar in a single serving of canned beans. That's not a side dish. That's a processed junk food disguised as a healthy protein. But crack open the wrong can, and what you're really eating is glucose-fructose, chemical firming agents, caramel coloring, and preservatives that interfere with your liver, all dressed up as a simple, wholesome pantry staple. If canned beans have been your go-to for 10, 20, 30 years, everything we found has been building up in your body that entire time. Today, we're counting down 11 Canadian canned bean brands that failed to protect your health, starting with bad and ending with the worst. The number one spot belongs to a brand nearly every Canadian household grew up with, and it's the most dangerous on this list, plus the two brands that actually tested clean. Coming in at number 11, great value, Walmart's Budget Bean. The bright yellow shelf tag, the promise of smart savings. The can that ends up in millions of Canadian grocery carts every single week because the price feels impossible to beat. That low price hides something expensive. Great value standard canned beans regularly contain over 400 milligrams of sodium per serving. That's roughly a quarter of the daily recommended limit in half a cup. But the sodium isn't alone. Calcium chloride sits on the ingredient list as a firming agent. Modified cornstarch shows up as a thickener. These aren't ingredients your grandmother used when she soaked beans overnight. These are industrial shortcuts designed to make cheap beans look and feel like they were cooked with care. Open a can of great value kidney beans. Notice how unnaturally firm they are, how uniform in shape, almost waxy to the touch. That texture isn't quality. That's calcium chloride doing what real cooking time should have done. Taste one straight from the can. That sharp, metallic edge underneath the salt. That's the preservative system talking. For anyone managing blood pressure with daily medication, or families feeding these to children several nights a week, that hidden sodium load quietly undermines prescriptions and builds habits that compound over decades. Your doctor adjusts your dosage. Your beans undo the adjustment every single night. Walmart generated over $600 billion in global revenue last year. They could source cleaner beans. They could reduce the sodium. They could drop the firming agents. The price point matters more than your blood work. Savings at the register. Cost at the pharmacy. You'd think paying a little more at a different store would get you something better. At number 10, it doesn't. Selection is Metro's house brand. The one stacked floor to ceiling in every Metro, Food Basics, and Super C across the country. The reliable, no-fuss pantry staple Canadian shoppers have reached for without thinking for decades. Then read the ingredient panel. Many of their canned bean products list sugar or glucose-fructose among the top ingredients. Not near the bottom where you'd expect trace amounts, near the top where it matters. Glucose-fructose is a cheap industrial sweetener. It appears in processed snack food, in soft drinks, in candy, and it appears in your canned beans, sitting quietly on the shelf next to products that are supposed to be healthy. And their conventional can linings have not been publicly certified BPA-free, meaning every serving potentially exposes you to bisphenol A, an endocrine disruptor linked to hormone imbalance, reproductive issues, and metabolic dysfunction. Crack open a can of selection beans in tomato sauce. Smell it. That sweetness hitting your nose before anything savory does. That's not tomato. That's added sugar doing what flavor should have done. Spoon some onto a plate. Notice the syrupy viscosity of the sauce. Thicker than it should be, glossier than real tomato. That's the glucose-fructose and modified starch working together to simulate homemade. A can of beans shouldn't taste like dessert. For people over 50 tracking their A1C levels alongside anyone in the family managing weight, those added sugars compound blood sugar instability meal after meal. Your morning metformin fights the glucose spike. Your dinner beans create a new one. Metro reported over $20 billion in annual revenue. They could reformulate tomorrow. They could remove the glucose-fructose. They could certify their linings BPA-free. Selection is their choice, not yours. 2 brands down. 2 brands most people bought this month without a second glance. It gets worse. At number 9, Irresistibles. Metro's step-up brand. The one with the sleeker packaging. The name that whispers premium. The product line that suggests you've graduated from the budget shelf to something worth paying more for. The branding is a promotion. The ingredients are a demotion. Their baked beans and flavored varieties can pack over 500 milligrams of sodium and 8 to 12 grams of sugar per serving. often from glucose-fructose. In a single half-cup serving, that's more sugar than some chocolate bars contain in the same volume. And the sodium alone represents a quarter of what most health agencies recommend for an entire day. Open a can of Irresistibles maple-style beans. Watch the sauce cling to the spoon. Thick, dark, almost candy-like. Taste it, and the sweetness dominates everything. The beans are an afterthought, a vehicle for delivering sugar and sodium in a format that looks like a side dish. Run your finger along the inside of the empty can. That sticky residue is the sugar and starch system refusing to let go. This isn't a glaze that enhances flavor. This is a coating that masks the fact that the beans underneath have very little flavor of their own. 500 milligrams of sodium paired with 12 grams of sugar is not a health food. It's a cardiovascular gamble in a can. For anyone managing type 2 diabetes who also takes blood pressure medication, or households where kidney health is already a concern, you're loading 2 risk factors onto one plate without realizing it. The premium label charged you more for more damage. Irresistible is the name. Avoidable is the truth. Metro sells both Selection and Irresistibles. Same parent company, same supply chain, different label, same health risks. One just costs more and looks prettier doing it. If Metro's brands can't deliver, surely Sobeys does better with their trusted store brand. Here's where it gets personal. Number 8. Compliments. Sobeys house brand. The one millions of Atlantic and Central Canadian families reach for weekly. The brand that sits in pantries from Halifax to Hamilton because it's always on sale, always available, always familiar. Familiarity is not safety. Their flavored bean products frequently use caramel color, a cosmetic additive that contributes nothing to nutrition but has been linked to potential carcinogenic byproducts during manufacturing. The specific type used in many processed foods, known as Class 3 or Class 4 caramel color, can contain 4-methylimidazole, a chemical California requires cancer warnings for. Modified starches bulk up the sauce to give it that thick, cling-to-the-bean consistency that mimics homemade. Sodium levels approach 500 milligrams per half-cup serving. Open a can of Compliments pork and beans. Look at that dark, almost mahogany-colored sauce. That color isn't from slow-cooked tomatoes. That's caramel coloring manufactured in a lab. Added so the product photographs well for flyer ads. Run your tongue across the sauce. Salty first, then sweet, then a chemical aftertaste that doesn't belong in something called simple comfort food. The beans feel soft, almost deflated, as if the processing stripped out any structural integrity they once had. For people on diuretics or potassium-sparing medications who also cook these beans for grandchildren visiting on weekends, the sodium-potassium imbalance puts real strain on aging kidneys while normalizing processed food for the next generation. Trust built over decades. Ingredients hidden the entire time. Sobeys earned over $30 billion in parent company revenue last year. They could clean up Compliments overnight. They chose the caramel coloring instead. That dark sauce hiding what's really inside. That's the Compliments brand promise. Think you've been making the smart choice by reaching for the simplest label in the store? Wait until you see what simple really means. Number 7. No name. The plain yellow packaging, the straightforward font, the brand that built its entire identity on honest simplicity. No gimmicks, no fancy marketing, just the basics at rock-bottom prices. The packaging tells you exactly what's inside, except it doesn't. While their plain canned beans are relatively clean, a few ingredients in water, their baked bean and seasoned varieties quietly add glucose-fructose, modified cornstarch, and sodium levels that rival fast food side dishes. A half cup. Serving of no-name baked beans can deliver sodium numbers that match a small order of fries from a drive-through window. The simple yellow label creates an assumption. Simple packaging means simple food. Clean design means clean eating. That assumption is a marketing strategy, not a nutritional guarantee. Loblaws didn't design that yellow label to be honest. They designed it to feel honest. And the feeling has been more profitable than any premium brand in their entire portfolio. Open a can of no-name baked beans. The smell hits different from the plain variety. Sweeter, more processed, closer to a canned pasta sauce than anything resembling home-cooked legumes. Stir it with a spoon. The sauce is gelatinous, over-thickened by starch, designed to coat each bean in maximum flavor, impact at minimum cost. The modified cornstarch doesn't just thicken, it changes the mouthfeel entirely, creating a slippery, almost gluey texture that real bean sauce never has. For anyone over 50 who assumed the simple label means simple ingredients alongside families buying no name, because the budget is tight, you may be worsening cholesterol and triglyceride numbers without a second thought. Honest packaging, dishonest ingredient list. Loblaws, the parent company, pulls in over $60 billion annually. The yellow label isn't about simplicity, it's about margin. No name means no accountability. This next one has a loyal fan base that swears by it. What the ingredient list actually shows is a different story. Number 6, Green Giant. The Jolly Green Giant. Decades of television advertising. That booming voice saying ho 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 over valleys of fresh vegetables. Many Canadians over 50 grew up believing this was the gold standard in vegetables and legumes. The trust runs deep, childhood deep. The kind of brand loyalty that survives decades because the memory of it feels safe. But memories don't read ingredient labels. Open a can of Green Giant beans today. Read past the nostalgic label. Disodium, EDTA, sits on the ingredient list as a preservative, a synthetic chelating agent used in industrial applications from water treatment to metal cleaning. Calcium chloride for artificial firmness. Sodium counts exceeding 450 milligrams per serving. Those three additives appear together, working as a system designed to make cheap, overprocessed beans look and taste acceptable for years on a shelf. Pick up a single bean. Feel how rigid it is. Almost crunchy in a way that real slow-cooked beans never are. That's chemical engineering, not cooking. Rinse them under water and watch the cloudy, slightly foamy liquid run off. That foam is the preservative system washing away. The bean underneath tastes flat, hollow, stripped of the earthy depth a properly prepared legume should have. For anyone managing congestive heart failure or fluid retention, who also feeds these to family at weeknight dinners, that preservative and sodium combination aggravates swelling and puts unnecessary pressure on the cardiovascular system. The Giant is still jolly. The ingredient list is not. Childhood trust, adult consequences. Green Giant is owned by B&G Foods, a corporation with a portfolio of legacy brands coasting on decades-old loyalty. They could reformulate. They could drop the EDTA. They could reduce the sodium. The nostalgia sells itself. Why spend money improving what memory already protects? If this helps you stay safer at the store, hit subscribe. It's free, and it means you'll never miss these exposés. But at least if you pay more for a heritage brand, you get better quality, right? Not even close. Number 5, Del Monte. A fixture in Canadian pantries since the mid-20th century. The brand your parents trusted instinctively, the name that feels synonymous with quality because it's been around longer than most of us. Longevity is not the same as integrity. Their seasoned and flavored bean products regularly contain high fructose sweeteners, artificial flavorings, and sodium benzoate as a preservative. Sodium benzoate, when combined with ascorbic acid or citric acid, can form benzene, a known carcinogen. That reaction happens inside the can, on the shelf, while the product sits in your pantry for weeks or months. The longer it sits, the more time that chemistry has to work. Open a can of Del Monte seasoned beans. The aroma is immediately artificial, a perfume-like sweetness that doesn't match any spice rack you own. That smell isn't food. That's a chemical flavor profile engineered in a lab to trigger appetite. Taste the sauce. It's engineered. Bright, punchy, almost aggressive in its flavor profile. That's not slow-cooked seasoning. That's a laboratory formulation designed to create craving, not nutrition. The beans themselves sit in that sauce like passengers, secondary to the chemical flavor delivery system surrounding them. Scoop some onto a plate and watch how the sauce pools unnaturally, glossy and thick, as if it were designed to be photographed rather than eaten. For anyone on blood thinners or statin medications who also makes these beans a weekly dinner staple, these chemical preservatives can interfere with liver metabolism and make medication dosing unpredictable. Your pharmacist calibrates the dose. Your dinner throws off the calculation. Del Monte has been on shelves for over 70 years. 70 years of trust. 70 years of sodium benzoate. Your parents didn't know. Now you do. The next brand on this list is in almost every Italian-Canadian household. And what's hiding inside will surprise you. Number 4, Primo. The authentic Italian-Canadian choice. The brand with the flag, the heritage, the generations of Sunday sauce memories baked into every label. Primo doesn't just sell beans. They sell belonging, tradition, the feeling that you're cooking the way Nonna did. Nonna didn't use calcium chloride. Open a can of Primo Romano beans. Look at them. Perfectly uniform, impossibly firm, each bean holding its shape as if it were made of plastic rather than grown in soil. Squeeze one between your fingers. It doesn't yield gently like a home-cooked bean. It resists, then pops. That artificial firmness is calcium chloride doing what slow simmering should do in a fraction of the time. It saves the manufacturer hours of cooking. It saves them money. It costs you the texture and the nutrition that proper cooking preserves. Citric acid rounds out the preservative trio, lowering the pH to extend shelf life far beyond what any natural food should endure. Sodium levels go largely unnoticed because shoppers focus on the Italian flag, the heritage branding, the promise of authenticity. But real Italian cooking starts with dried beans soaked overnight. Real Italian cooking doesn't require chemical firming agents to simulate quality. Real Italian nonnas would look at the ingredient panel on this can and refuse to serve it. For people concerned about bone density who take calcium supplements daily, or anyone cooking with these multiple nights per week, excess sodium directly accelerates calcium loss through the kidneys. Your supplement builds bone density in the morning. Your canned beans drain it at dinner. One step forward, one step back, every single day. Primo charges a premium for heritage. They deliver chemicals dressed in tradition, the flag on the label, the calcium chloride inside the can. Sunday dinner deserves better than industrial shortcuts wrapped in nostalgia. The next brand on this list is arguably the most iconic canned bean in the entire country, and it's more dangerous than you think. Number 3, Heinz. No canned bean in Canada is more recognized. No brand carries more emotional weight. Heinz beans in tomato sauce is practically a national food group. Campfire beans, Saturday lunch beans. The can that appears at every cabin, every cottage, every camping trip in the country. Most people eat them multiple times per week without questioning a single ingredient. A single serving of Heinz. Original beans in tomato sauce can contain over 600 milligrams of sodium and 10 grams or more of added sugar. Read that again. 600 milligrams of sodium, 10 grams of sugar, in a product marketed as a simple, hearty protein. That's closer to a processed dessert than a health food. Open the can. The sauce is visibly thick, almost gummy. Taste it and the sweetness overwhelms everything. It tastes good because it's been engineered to taste good, at the expense of every nutritional claim you assumed it carried. For anyone managing both blood pressure and blood sugar, who trust this as a quick protein source, or families serving this to kids as a reliable meal, eating Heinz beans regularly is a double hit that most family doctors would flag immediately if they saw your food diary. 600 milligrams. 10 grams of sugar. That's not dinner. That's a diagnosis waiting to happen. Heinz didn't build the most trusted bean brand in Canada by being honest. They built it by being delicious. And delicious, in this case, means dangerously sweet and dangerously salty. That's 3 of Canada's biggest names exposed. 3 brands you've probably bought in the last month. The next one is even worse. Number 2, Unico. The go-to brand for Mediterranean-style cooking across Canada. Trusted by generations of home cooks who use it in soups, stews, pasta, and salads without thinking twice. Unico has positioned itself as the versatile pantry essential, the one that works in every recipe, the one you always keep stocked. Even their so-called plain varieties carry sodium per serving ratios among the highest in the entire store brand category. Calcium chloride and citric acid appear in virtually every product. Open a can of Unico white kidney beans, the plain ones. The variety most people assume is just beans and water. Pour off the liquid. It's thick, slightly slimy, clouded with dissolved additives. Rinse the beans and feel the residue between your fingers. That film doesn't wash off easily. It clings because it was designed to. Firming agents bonded to the surface of every single bean. Taste one unrinsed. The sodium hit is immediate, sharper than you'd expect from something plain. That's not seasoning, that's industrial preservation. For anyone with compromised kidney function, or those following dialysis-adjacent dietary restrictions, who also rely on these for daily meal preparation, Unico's sodium density makes portion control nearly impossible without careful rinsing that most people skip. Plain on the label, processed in the can. Mediterranean tradition doesn't come from a factory that adds calcium chloride to every batch. Unico sells convenience. The price is your kidney function. Drop a comment if Unico is sitting in your pantry right now. Let's see how many of us have been cooking with this. That was bad. But the #1 spot on this list makes every brand we've covered look almost honest. Number 1, Clark. One of the oldest canned bean brands in Canada. Clark's pork and beans are practically a national comfort food. The brand the boomer generation grew up with. The can that sat on every camping table, every cottage counter, every emergency shelf for decades. Clark isn't just a bean brand. Clark is a Canadian memory, and that memory is poisoning you. Clark's classic recipe is loaded with sugar, pork fat, and sodium. Some varieties exceed 700 milligrams of sodium and 15 grams of sugar in a single serving. 700 milligrams. That's nearly half a day's recommended sodium in one sitting. 15 grams of sugar in something that calls itself a protein. That's more sugar than a glazed donut. Open a can of Clark's. The smell is unmistakable. Sweet, porky, heavy with salt. Thick sauce that coats the inside of the can like syrup. The beans themselves are soft, almost mushy, drowning in a slurry of fat, sugar, and sodium. That texture isn't comfort. That's what happens when real nutrition surrenders to flavor engineering. Scoop a spoonful. The taste is addictive because the formula is designed to be addictive. Salt triggers craving. Sugar triggers craving. Fat triggers craving. All three together in a single serving creates a cycle that keeps you reaching for a second helping, a third, a full can. For anyone juggling cholesterol medication, blood pressure pills, and blood sugar management who also eats these out of habit multiple times a week, Clark beans are quietly working against every prescription in your medicine cabinet at once. 700 milligrams of sodium, 15 grams of sugar, pork fat in every spoonful. That's not a healthy protein. That's a cardiovascular event dressed in nostalgia. Clark has been on shelves for generations. The recipe hasn't changed. Neither have the consequences. What's the worst canned bean you've ever opened? Drop it below. 11 brands exposed. 11 cans that belong in the recycling bin, not on your dinner plate. But clean beans do exist. 2 brands prove you can eat canned beans without eating your way into a pharmacy. Eden Organic. This is the brand that quietly changed everything about what a canned bean should be. Eden Foods uses a proprietary BPA-free can lining and adds kombu seaweed during cooking, which naturally tenderizes beans and adds trace minerals without a single milligram of added sodium. Their canned beans consistently come in at 15 to 40 milligrams of sodium per serving. Compare that to Clark's 700. Compare that to Heinz's 600. Eden sits at 15. No added sugar, no preservatives, no calcium chloride, no modified starch, no caramel coloring, no sodium benzoate. Just beans, water, and kombu. Open a can of Eden Organic black beans. The difference is immediate. The liquid is thin, almost broth-like, clear rather than cloudy. The beans are tender but intact, yielding gently when pressed. No waxy resistance, no chemical firmness. Smell them. Earthy, clean, like beans that were actually cooked in a kitchen rather than processed in a factory. Taste one. Creamy, rich, with a depth of flavor that makes you realize every other brand has been masking poor quality with salt and sugar. Eden publishes their third-party lab results publicly. They invite scrutiny because they can survive it. For anyone managing kidney health who also takes daily heart medication, this is a genuine whole food protein source that supports every system in your body instead of working against it. It costs a few dollars more per can. That's the price of food that actually nourishes you. Eden Organic didn't cut corners. They cut the chemicals. PC Organics, the President's Choice Organic line. This is the most accessible clean bean option in the country. Available in virtually every Loblaw, No Frills, Superstore, and Value Mart across Canada. No specialty shop required, no online ordering. Just walk into the store you already shop at and reach for the green label instead of the yellow one. PC Organics sources certified organic beans with no added salt varieties containing fewer than 15 milligrams of sodium per serving. Fewer than 15. That's essentially sodium-free. 0 additives beyond water and beans. Their organic certification through the Canadian Food Inspection Agency means no synthetic pesticide residues. Loblaw has publicly committed to BPA-free lining across their entire organic canned goods line. Open a can of PC Organics chickpeas. Pour off the aquafaba, that clear, clean bean water that vegans actually use for cooking because it's pure enough to whip into meringue. The beans inside are whole, naturally soft, lightly golden. No chemical sheen, no waxy coating, no film to rinse away. Taste one. Nutty, buttery, genuinely flavorful without a gram of added anything. This is what a canned bean is supposed to be. For the viewer managing heart health alongside anyone in the family watching their sodium intake, this is the brand that lets you eat canned beans without second-guessing your next blood panel. Same grocery store, same aisle, different can. Completely different impact on your body. PC Organics proves you don't need to spend more or shop farther to eat clean. You just need to read the label and make a different choice. 11 brands, 11 betrayals, one pantry that needs a purge. Subscribe now, and if you're watching on TV, tap your remote so you never get blindsided again.